What's good, Josh? Your boy Barracuda. Welcome to Straight Convo. So, Corey Holcomb calls out Dr. Umar for asking his supporters for money. So, we're going to watch the video and then we're going to talk about it.
Time. But there's more to it that I want to put my spin on with it. First of all, I knew he wasn't 100 with it when he faked the phone call. When he was in tour with somebody, and you saw it, it's so funny. I watched it probably 1,000 times. When he was arguing with somebody and he acts like his goons was calling. He was like, no, hold on, here you go. Hello? No, man, I got this. I got this. Then his phone said, nigga, do you know how hard I was laughing, dog? I'm saying, dude, you played yourself in front of anybody that's 100. You can't come back from that. It take at least 5 years of staying away from the internet and a sincere apology for playing people like they lame, for a real one to even listen to that, what you got to say anymore. So what I'm saying about this is the real problem with a man like this Umar brother. This is the real problem. Anybody with common sense know that this man ain't got no school coming. Anybody with common sense know that. But there's a sucker born every minute. So he gonna keep running his script and absorb what he can from the suckers. This is where he's very detrimental.
And I agree because, Umar talked about opening up that school. Damn, it must be 10 years now. Like, or maybe a little smaller, a little shorter than that. But I remember him talking about it, and I gave him a break because I felt like, let's give him time. Maybe he's busy, but then it was like year after year, and then he just completely stopped talking about the school. That's when I know what type of person he was because people donated a lot of money to him.
To our community. Not just the fact that he begs and borrows, robs. This is a man who's always talking about black women and how the black queens should be put first, foremost, all that.
And also, I agree because, one thing I notice about people that pander to women, they actually have lack of respect for women in real life. They're usually always in messy situations. They're always in drama with women. You're basically lying to the people and deceiving women because a large part of your followers and supporters are women. So you use and manipulate them, and it's a deceptive tactic to lure women in, you know, and just pander to them and tell them the things they want to hear, and you never hold them accountable. Never hold them accountable. Rarely. And then you start seeing all of these messy situations and toxic situations that this person's in. You know what I'm saying? You're like, man, why are you involved in these toxic situations? If you see another person being toxic, just leave. Don't engage in that. But you always in toxic situations. Years ago, he was involved with a stripper. You know what I'm saying?
But I wonder, can he assemble black women that ain't got a this nigga that fucked me over story? You're a predator. You use your good talking to destroy the lames and hoes. And there's a lady on the internet he's talking about. He says her vagina stinks. He says all this. He says, oh, she's this. He's accusing her of going in his bank account and getting the money, probably. He said, I think she did it. Hold on. According to this woman, he called him. She needed help with her son, thought he might be able to help. It's game in there. But okay, he agreed to meet up with her, but he had her drive 2 hours to pick him up from the airport where he was flying in. Now, if you are a woman who grew up around men who love you, you would never go for that. You can't step to no woman who know what she needs to know in the hole.
You know, but this is the problem with a lot of people, man. You know, when people just tend to, because, listen, as far as Dr. Umar, when he speaks about racism and white supremacy, he's spot on. 9 times out of 10, I agree with him, you know, because he states a lot of facts and he's well educated in that field. And, but I can take the message, I could take the knowledge and information and separate that from the person. And I think people have a hard time separating that person. He might not be a good person from him having knowledge. And when you don't know how to separate the two, because he might be a stone cold piece of shit. We don't know him personally, but just because he's given us valuable information means we can't utilize that information and separate him as a person. Let's say, all right, man, I know he's really not a good person. I can't trust him. Let's just, he does speak truth. Let's just take that information. People, this is why you shouldn't worship human beings. It even says it in the Bible. If you are a follower of man, you'll follow evilness. Because, man is, he said, every man is a liar. If he's not following truth, he's a liar. And you cannot, if you're so caught up in his image, if you're so caught up in who he is, and you don't see him doing any wrong, you worship that person. You have a right to critique and judge anybody, especially if they're doing wrong. Nobody is exempt from that. So when you see people, oh, that person could do no wrong, you're just a fool. You're just a fool, man, and you're a puppet. So anyway, let's finish.
Past 40. 40 years old in the hole when you need me to come get you? No real woman who was brought up by men who love her will go for that. And if they do go for it, it's because they wanted to hold out for somebody, which he has fame on the internet. So maybe this woman was like, I'm just gonna do it. Of course, she probably has a son with issues and all that. But when a man
Listen, I'm not knocking her for trying to get help from Umar. She didn't know what type of person he is actually. So the problem is, even if she got family, if she could have had a father, she could have had a brothers in her life. They are unaware what type of man he is too, because they just see him on social media, and they're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's a stand-up guy. So once I would say, listen, if I was her brother, if I was a father, I'm like, listen, you can, what I'm saying, that's fine, that's cool, getting information. But once I start seeing him moving a certain way and dealing, and then my daughter or my sister's dealing with him in a certain way, I would have jumped in and said, what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? That nah, don't do that, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because people gonna do what they want regardless. But you can't say I didn't intervene and try to tell you what was right.
you come drive 2.5 hours and pick me up from the airport, and he passed the age of 40.
I'm not gonna lie, I would have thought that was funny. You know what I'm saying? It would have marked some skepticism in my mind that this guy, needs a 2 hour somebody to pick him, drive out. I'm like, you Dr. Umar, right? Won't you come to her? Is she, are you doing this for free? Is she paying you? You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking about all of that stuff. But
Hey, you ain't got no business going to get no man 2.5 hours and drive him anywhere. All my sisters who've been around me and who love them know this. You can't do it. You don't start out in the home with a woman, a client, or whatever you want to call this lady. So, but this lady did it. Don't play victim now. You invited the devil in. I'm talking to the sister who he said got the fishy vagina. Sister.
I'm gonna stop it right there. But I have people in my family that is, sort of like personality wise, Dr. Umar Johnson. They might be intelligent, have a lot of knowledge, and but they suffer from like mental issues, and they're very narcissistic, and people like that you can't have a close relationship with because they don't do no wrong. You know what I'm saying? They manipulate, they control, and they make you feel like you're delusional. When they doing all this stuff, they're gonna make you feel like you're bugging, you're delusional, you're this, you're that. And that's a dangerous person because you have to be very wise and strong minded to see what that person's doing. If you're weak minded, because that's the only people he can get away with that from is weak minded people. He gonna devour you, man. You won't understand the type of psychological games he's playing and what type of problems he has, and he's, you know what I'm saying, and what type of game he's running on you. But anyway, let me know what y'all think. It's your boy Barracuda, Straight Convo. I'm out.